You're listening to Slightly Sauced. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 205 of Slightly Sauced. My name is John.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Derek.
I guess we should have discussed the order beforehand. This is complicated.
I was like, am I supposed to go?
It's amazing what cues you think that you just get automatically, but are totally based on body language that don't work worth a damn if you're not all in the same room. It's weird to discover those. Anyway, oh shit, we have an email. We have an email from Ernie, and I gotta get it. Hang on, I got it. It's here somewhere. We'll find it. We'll get it.
Did you print it out?
No. I put it on some stones and stuff. Where the
Did he send it to you written on human skin?
Maybe I didn't find it. I don't have it.
I thought Tyler said he was
Tyler
sending
just
it
sent
to
it
you.
to me. He just sent it to me, I think. It's Ernie. He likes dragons. Ernie. It's Ernie. Sending human skin to people. It's Ernie. And Bert. So we got an email from Ernie. He goes on for a while. I don't know. He starts off, ahoy hoy, sauced ones. Just a quick synopsis of Black Mirror Season 3, Episode 1. In the future, everyone is on one particular social media app that allows you to rate everything, not just your pictures and status updates, but also every interaction you have with every other person. So, of course, the higher your personal rating, the higher your status in society. That doesn't sound like a good idea at all. Does that sound like a good idea to you guys?
How is that not already what we live today?
Well, because we don't rate every interaction with everybody. That's ridiculous. Is this just because I haven't been dating in a while? Is that the... Maybe it's different if you're actively out trying to meet people? I don't know. I got enough friends. I don't need new ones. Ernie continues, I think this is going to be the reality any day now. Personally, I'm not really into social media. Facebook is the only place I actually have a profile, although I used to have a MySpace page. However, just seeing how everyone has to like everything everyone else posts and how much they want their own post to be liked feels kind of desperate. I also think it's very odd when I see a post along the lines of, there was a school shooting in such and such a place today, just so tragic, and then underneath it says 10 people like this. It makes it sound like everyone likes school shootings, but then again, maybe that's just in my head. Well, I think Facebook tried to fix that with their weird emoticon things, but, it's never going to properly solve the problem, I suppose. I don't know. Social media is weird like that. He says, also at the end of every YouTube video, they always have to beg, like and subscribe to our video. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Grambook, Twitface, and every single other social media platform that exists so I can feel some self-worth. We're not living in the Matrix, we're living in the Black Mirror. Mark my words, any day now, a politician is going to be blackmailed into having sex with a pig. Hopefully it will be President the Donald. Fair enough. I don't know. I have some different thoughts on it, I guess. I mean, the social media stuff I agree with, certainly. But I think I disagree with the YouTube stuff. And Jake has a particular bone to pick about this, too. So it's a shame that he's not on the line. He hates the like and subscribe thing at the end of YouTube videos, but people do it for a very good reason. The reason they do it is because they're trying to, or the people that do it are trying to build an income off of the platform, right? And that income is based wholly on likes and subscribes. So it's the same way that at the end of every podcast, we remind people that they can get the podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, as if people who listen to podcasts don't know that that's where podcasts come from, right? It's a nonsense thing to say, but everyone says it.
Maybe we should buck the trend.
I mean, we could, but then how would people know where to get the podcast?
Good point. We should not do that.
Right, you see? It's a real problem.
I really don't even know where to get a podcast, so...
Well, there you are. I guess you're not going to be one of our target demographic.
Well, just listen to this podcast and you'll find out.
Oh, excellent
That's
point.
a great idea.
Yeah.
I am 92.68% sure that we read that last week.
You think so?
Yeah.
All right. Well, if we did, I'll take it out and edit. And if not, I'll leave this part in and we'll look like idiots.
Yeah.
Sweet.
It's a great idea.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, I think this will be great. Should we start off by recommending some stuff?
Yeah, it's this new segment we have. It's called Hey, What's That?
Oh.
And it's where we recommend
Sounds
something
exciting.
that you want to have people check out, or if you just read a good book or something. This week, mine is going to be the Netflix original TV show called Stranger Things. It's not exactly a new show. It came out last year, but it's excellent, and you should definitely watch it. It's
Isn't it
it
like
captures
about kids in the 80s?
Yeah, it captures the feel of the 80s better than anything that I've seen that literally didn't come out of the 80s.
In all the trailers I see, it just looks like E.T.
So very much so. It has that vibe all the way through. It's a mix of E.T., of just those types of, I guess, classic, if you want to call that classic sci-fi.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very well done. It's only, I think, like 8 episodes a season or something, so it's pretty short. You can get through it really quick. It's got, like 9 out of 10s on every rating site online. So, I think it's actually one of the highest rated television shows of all time.
That sort of stuff is fun, even if you're not totally invested in the story. Like, I really like a good period piece, mostly because I'm really into world building. And it sounds silly to call the 80s a period piece, but shit, that was like 30 years ago, right? It's a long time ago for some of this. And so what I like is movies or TV shows that build sort of a consistent world, especially one that's different than ours. So Mad Men was really good at this, right? They built a world that was set in a particular time period, and it looked like it, not just down to the props in the world, but also to the way it was shot. Like, the colors on the television screen made it look like an old television show, and that's what I meant when I said that it looks like E.T. in the trailers I've seen, right? It looks like it was filmed in the 80s. Like, it looks like that kind of film, even though it was made, this year or whatever, right?
Yeah, and actually there's an excellent, I can't remember where I saw it, I think it was on YouTube or something, but there was an excellent video where they were talking with the people who designed the intro sequence of the TV show, and how it's all done on computers. It's all digital, it's all CG, but
it's aping the old in the box, the hardware technologies they would have had to use were the 80s, right?
No, actually the big issue that they had to overcome was to make things not look so crisp and so high definition.
Okay.
So they actually, I think he said that they went and they filmed real fluorescent light bulbs and tubes and stuff to get the feel of the light, and then they used that as the basis for all of their actual assets.
That's really cool.
Anyway, it's really interesting. The show is excellent. It's got that ET vibe, the X-Files vibe. It's sort of a horror, but it's not. Like, so if you're the kind of person who's really jumpy at horror stuff, like the horror segments of the show, they're very brief, and really the story is about the characters more than anything. So definitely check it out.
Cool. I got a few things to share, so I'll do a couple of real quick ones, and then we'll throw it to Derek, and then I got one more as well, because I've had a busy couple of weeks. I don't have any fucking articles, but I got cool things to share. First things real quick, I got another YouTube video up, so if you're interested in watching some woodworking videos, check out Apprentice Marks on YouTube. Second thing, if you are a music nerd like me, Alan Cross has started releasing old episodes of the ongoing history of new music as a podcast. Now, they cut the vast majority of the music out of it because legal reasons, but they do have the full episodes up with all the stories, so you can subscribe to it, iTunes, Stitcher, all the usual places. And the first 3 episodes are the Rise and Fall and Rise Again of Blink-182, and it's fascinating, and I've been listening to a bunch of Blink-182 because of it. So if you're into music geekery, the ongoing history of new music is amazing. If you're not Canadian, you might not know about it. It's fantastic. Check it out. It's a podcast now.
I have nothing to recommend.
Really? Okay.
So recommend your second thing.
I got another thing. I've been using a site lately that YouTube will give 0 shits about, but it's absolutely amazing. It's called Discogs. Discogs is a collection site, kind of like Goodreads for books, but it's for records, for vinyl record collecting. I guess it works for all music. You could put a CD collection in here or a cassette collection too if you wanted to, but similarly to Goodreads, you scan in the albums that you have in your collection, but above and beyond that, just as sort of a sorting and organizing thing, it also acts as a marketplace. So a lot of vinyl, specifically anything that was pressed before 2000, is all secondhand, right? So anything from the 60s, 70s, 80s, those records aren't being pressed anymore. You have to buy them used because you can't really get them new, with the exception of big, like Pink Floyd has repressed their albums because they sell a bajillion of them. But for smaller stuff, then you always have to buy it used. So what Discogs does is it connects a whole bunch of people like a purpose-built Kijiji or eBay who are selling and buying records. But interestingly, it does a data-driven approach. So you can export and analyze all your data that you put in for what you own and what you've sold and stuff. But for anything that is for sale, it shows you a graph of the price of that thing, kind of like a stock ticker, and it shows you the min, median, and max price for the last year, so you can know if you're getting fucked over or not. They also have like a built-in rating system for what condition the records are in. Everyone's got a buyer and seller rating. It's really, really cool. So already in just using it for a couple of weeks, I've ordered 3 records that I didn't think were actually available, and I've been able to buy them used from reputable people who've done a good job. So if you're at all into vinyl records, or if for some reason you're collecting tapes or CDs, definitely check out Discogs. It's a neat site.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It even tells you, like, once I put my collection in, it'll tell you how much your collection is potentially valued at if you were to sell it all. Stuff like that. It's all data driven. It's really interesting.
Where do I scan my MP3s?
You actually, some collections, believe it or not, are in here as MP3s. So it depends, right? It's sort of a, what was that one that people could put stuff into for M3 ID tags? It's like that. So like it's community submitted, right? So you can add a release to it if it doesn't exist. So you could put MP3 releases in here. In fact, I went looking for Cell Dweller's release, Cell Dweller, the eponymous one from like 2000. It's never been released on anything other than CD and FLAC pack. So it has the FLAC pack in here. You could add that to your collection if you wanted to.
Huh.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just a music collecting site, but it's also a marketplace. So it's pretty cool.
So, this is interesting. We can colonize the moon by 2022.
What?
And for less than the cost of an aircraft carrier.
Why? Well, hang on. How much does an aircraft carrier cost? Let's start there.
$10 billion.
Okay. That's a lot,
Even
but it's not.
still, that
that's not a
doesn't-
lot, right? Like, there are people who have $10 billion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, the whole point of this article is saying that now with 3D printing, SpaceX rockets getting into the mainstream, inflatable habitats, all sorts of other stuff, it's becoming more and more feasible to colonize the moon. And probably some of you are thinking, why the fuck would we want to colonize the moon? It's actually a good jumping off point into the outer solar system, like Mars. And then Mars itself would be a good jumping off point into the far reaches and for mining purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought this would be a good article to follow up with our $10,000 quadrillion asteroid.
Ah, yes. The very expensive mining operation. Sure. So
Yeah.
the idea is just that there's like this collusion of technologies that exists now, and all together they make for a space program that you couldn't have had before all these technologies exist. Is that the idea?
Well, you could have had it. It would have just cost a lot more.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you look at like even 3D printing in itself, sure, you still have to ship up all the little, what are they? They're like
the
little
filament
beads.
Or the
Yeah.
Depends on how it is. Yeah, it could be just the beads.
Sure, yeah. So you still have to ship that up, obviously, but it's probably a lot more efficient to ship a bunch of that than it is to ship every possible contingency part that you would need, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you just ship the raw materials and make it when you get there if you need it.
Well, yeah, because there's this thing in spaceflight, right? Everything comes down to weight. It's basically fuel per weight. And so you wouldn't think, like, if it's the same amount of weight, it wouldn't matter, but packing efficiency matters, because if you have to pack every different piece apart, then like you can't get as much of that into a spacecraft, so you have to send more flights, so it's more expensive. If you can send just raw materials, then it's way cheaper if you can do the manufacturing in place.
Yeah. What's cheaper, 10,000 kilograms of feathers to ship into space, or 10,000 kilograms of concrete?
Surprisingly, probably the concrete.
Oh, I thought it'd be the feathers because they would take up way more space.
Oh, you said cheaper. I think we're just saying the same thing backwards.
Yeah, what would be cheaper to send up?
It'd be cheaper to send the concrete.
Yeah, sorry, the concrete.
There
Yeah.
you go. We
I
were
said
saying
it
the same
backwards.
thing.
Yeah, I'm just completely backwards.
Okay.
I'm really confused.
To send the feathers, they don't pack as efficiently as the concrete, so you'd have to send relatively more flights. That's what it's saying. Packing efficiency matters.
No, I was just making fun of you guys.
Make fun of us better.
Sorry.
God.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I don't know if we'll see it in our lifetime, but I think there's definitely going to be a push going forward of getting back into space exploration. It's really going to be a matter of if you can make a economic argument for it.
Well, but this is the thing about colonizing the moon, right? It's not colonizing in the sense that we think of colonizing like discovering a new world. Everyone knows what's on the moon already, and there's not exactly a whole lot to be had there in terms of like materials that humans care about as far as I'm aware of. So any industry that you establish in a moon colony would almost certainly be based around spaceflight, right? It'd be like manufacturing and lifting off aircraft, and it would be that, or spacecraft, it'd be that jumping off point, like Derek said. I don't think that anyone's going to be going there on holiday, though.
Well, you never know. I would think some people may just think it's cool to go to the moon.
That's true. No, I suppose you're right. Just like some people think it's cool to go to space now, I guess.
I guarantee you, Donald Trump will open a Trump Tower on the moon if the moon is colonized.
Well, and I guess...
And it will be the best.
I mean, it'd be like
You'll love
any
it.
industrial area, right? Like if you go on a container ship or an oil rig or into like the oil fields, there are entertainment facilities in those places, even though they're very focused on the industry that they serve, right? So if you colonize the moon, I don't know, maybe they'll get a botanical gardens or something you'd want to visit there. I'm not sure.
Well,
Yeah.
of course. I mean, you think of like Hell on Wheels as they were building the railroads across the United States, and the town that would just follow it along the way,
Yep.
right? It's the exact same
Hey,
thing.
you got to have
Oh,
bars
yes,
and
the town
whorehouses
full
for
of
people to spend their
prostitutes.
money at. That's right.
Yep.
That's exactly what it's about. I don't know. That's
But it's fairly interesting too, because $10 billion, that's half of NASA's budget. So
sure.
come on, let's get NASA's budget up a little bit.
Okay, but
Make NASA great again.
Yeah, make NASA great again.
But you have to do something with the moon, like colonizing the moon. This is what I guess I'm trying to get at, right? Like if it were the ye olden days where you could colonize like a new chunk of Earth and have new spots to put people and grow your empire and get access to bigger resources, then that would be one thing. But colonizing the moon for the sake of colonizing the moon, it just doesn't seem like it has the same economic incentives, you know?
Yeah, just think of all the YouTubers who would make all the money from YouTubing from the moon. Like we have tons of videos. We have tons of videos of like random science stuff here, and just talking about stuff that could happen in space.
Do a lot of
people are
physics
actually there doing
experiments
it.
on the moon.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
for sure. That would get some sweet bandwidth, though.
Yeah, that's true.
It is an interesting question, just in terms of like implementation details. You know, if we do become a spacefaring society, will the speed of light be such that there is separate internets? There almost certainly would have to be, right? You wouldn't necessarily have the same YouTube. Or maybe you would just get YouTube, but you'd have to lose the sense of everything has to be immediate. You know, like their YouTube videos would show up a day late, and our Facebook comments would show up a day late there. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, didn't the Chinese astronaut program, whatever their agency is called, didn't they just perform an experiment where they quantum entangled photons from a satellite to the ground?
Did they do that? That sounds badass.
I don't know if it was successful, and I don't know if they said they were doing something like that, and I don't know that it was entirely clear what they were doing. But assuming that worked, and then the theory holds, right? So if you could get that to work,
Then you would have a link of some kind. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously information literally cannot travel faster than the speed of light, but because of quantum entanglement, you don't have to bridge that gap.
I don't begin to understand quantum entanglement, but it seems like one of those technologies that's going to be necessary if you're going to have a long distance exploration, right?
Yeah, I mean, just to sum it up in the most basic way, because I'm not obviously an expert in the field either, but if you perform an action in one location, the same action happens in another, or the opposite action happens in another. From that, you can turn a 0 to a 1 and a 1 to a 0, and therefore you have binary.
Ta-da, communication.
Anything.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you can do it as fast as at the speed of light locally, so it's really just a matter of making it work. Now, that's the big problem everyone's running into, obviously. But we'll get there someday, I'm sure.
I don't know. It's a cool idea. Would you go to the moon? Like, assuming that there was a job there for you and stuff. I'm not just saying, would you just go to the moon just to go? Like, if there was like a life that could be had there, would you go to the moon?
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
You think so?
What's so great about Earth?
I don't.
Everything
think
compared
the
to the moon. I mean, oceans, air, sunlight. You name it, man. The Earth's a pretty
Doesn't
good
mean you
spot.
have to stay there.
No, I suppose not.
I honestly don't think that the moon would be a actual colonizable, like as we think.
Right, that's what I'm
Human
saying.
civilization.
There's not much
It would more
there
just
in terms of
be-
resources.
It would more just be for working right in Earth orbit to go farther.
Right, because
So
the
it'd be
idea
like
there is that getting an
Heathrow
Earth out of
Airport.
the gravity, or giving a spaceship out of the gravity well of Earth, is actually not easy to do. Right, that contributes significantly to the cost.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Plus, you get into the whole thing where you could potentially build spacecraft in orbit.
Right,
Right.
especially big spacecraft that it would be infeasible to build on the ground.
Yep.
Did you guys see that video that's been kicking around of, it's just another one of those, you say this like, oh, it's just another one of those things. SpaceX did another one of those reusable booster landings. And this one's onto a landing platform on the ground, but it looks ridiculous. Like, it looks like something right out of a movie. It's just like this still shot from a few kilometers away of this landing pad, and then right out of the clouds, just zoop, like it's like a rocket is just like a video of a liftoff is just being reversed. It looks ridiculous.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It looks like a liftoff in reverse.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you know, it's easy to take this for granted because this, I think, is the 10th time they've done it now, but it's still amazing that that's a thing that we can do now. It's nuts.
Yep.
Oh, that wouldn't have not been possible just in the 1980s.
No, it's true. Definitely true. Huh. Cool. Well, let's go to the moon then. I got a video I might share. It's an interesting one, but it's pretty short. There was a video that came out from Wired a little while ago called "Meet the Robot That Makes Delicious Vinyl Records." Let me, off the top of it, stupid fucking title. The records are not delicious. That's a ridiculous adjective to use. But anyway, it's a little quick coverage video, kind of in the vein of like a how it's made. But it's interesting because it's about a modern record pressing plant. Now, of course, this presses my buttons because I'm a big record geek and music geek. But what is interesting about it, if you're not a vinyl geek, is that it's taking, it's about a company that has taken old technology and how to press a record and automated it to fit into the modern world. And this is important because as the marketplace for records has picked up over the last couple of years, there's actually been a shortage in the amount of pressing available. So a few years ago, one of the best known examples, Taylor Swift released her album 1989 on vinyl. But when she did, there were like 6-month back orders because there aren't enough plants with working record pressing machines in the world to keep up for the demand of a release from someone like Taylor Swift. Because people just stopped building the machines. They stopped making parts for the machines. The machines were sold or dismantled or whatever, right? So there just isn't enough pressing capability in the world. Now, more records are being sold than have been for many, many years. And so some companies start automating the process again and building new machines. And this particular video covers one. So this machine is important because it can make one record every 30 seconds, which is significantly faster than the old machines could. And it has a whole bunch of, standard, what we would consider now standard automation stuff in it. So you can control, like speeds and feeds and temperatures and stuff like that you couldn't on older, more analog machines. Apparently the old machines, when you're making records, had like a 30 to 40% failure rate. So 30 to 40% of the records that came off the press were flawed or unplayable in some way and would just get batched and recycled again, which I thought was ridiculous. I had no idea that it was that high. These new machines, because they're higher quality control, have a less than 1% failure rate, and they can do the work of 6 to 8 of the old machines. So it's kind of interesting to see modern technology being thrown at what is really an ancient format. It's a format that's been around for 60 years, but this is a better way of doing it.
It's interesting to me that they would have that high of a failure rate.
Yeah.
Even in the olden days.
The thing to remember about them, no, it is the olden days.
They're pressings, though, right? Like it's essentially a stamp. So
right, but the interesting thing is that the failure rate. I wonder, and I don't know this, but I wonder if they never really baked the bugs out of the system, because a failure rate in a vinyl record isn't so bad. You just take the vinyl that came out the other side, throw it back in the beginning, chip it up, and start again. Like they just remelt the vinyl and repress it, right? So you don't really lose anything except, say, efficiency, I guess, but you're not like wasting the raw material. So it's not necessarily an expensive failure. It's just a time failure. So, yeah, I don't know. But the other thing that these guys can do then, this company, above and beyond these machines, is they're using modern digital signal processing to analyze the noise to signal ratio off of the finished record versus the digital files that came into the pressing plant. And so they're optimizing the settings on these machines because they can tweak every variable to make the best sounding records possible. So modern technology being used to optimize a very, very old process. And I thought that was a really cool idea.
Makes you wonder how many other things that we still have that are just legacy processes that we could just fix.
Oh, probably tons of them.
Vinyl is kind of an interesting one because it went away and then came back. But I'm like, there's just so much stuff that we live with and just live with it because it's always been that way.
Well, did you see that video a little while back that Techmoan put out about whatever that special type of cassette was called that came out kind of at the last death of cassette tapes in the 90s? There's a special type of cassette tape that came out, and I for the life of me forget the marketing wank associated with it, but basically when there was a couple of years in like 92, 93 or something where record sales overall took a dip, and people thought, oh my God, the industry is dying, and what actually happened is CDs picked up the next year and they went up again, but people kind of panicked, and so a bunch of investment dollars were put into making cassette tapes sound better at the time. And what they came up with was they replaced the old way of making cassette tapes with a new way. So they did what we would think is obvious. They took the music to be put on cassette on a hard drive from the recording studio. At the time, these were like 750 megabyte hard drives. They're the biggest the world had. And they took right from the digital files and recorded them directly to cassette tape. But previous to that, the old way of doing it was like a series of cassette tape buffers. So they would take the master tape from the studio, from that, make a bunch of copies, send those copies out to record reproduction houses. Then those houses would use that copy as their master, and then they would make copies, and then there would be more copies down the line. So there was like this hierarchy of copies. So by the time you bought a cassette tape at the store, it might be 5 copies away from the original master that came out of the recording studio. And because of that, you could buy the same cassette a month apart, and one could sound significantly better than the other because it was just the copies would wear out. You'd have to use a new copy. You could be towards the end of a cycle and get a really shitty sounding cassette tape. And so, there was just this way of making cassettes for years that everybody it was okay, I guess, because no one really complained until someone was like, hey, I wonder if we could do that better. And they made a significantly better sounding cassette tape. So in this video, this Tech-Moan video, he showed that this thing, according to him, in a double blind test, he can't tell the difference from a CD. And it's a cassette tape.
I still find that hard to believe,
Yeah.
but then again, I mean, people often overestimate what they can actually hear, right?
Well, and he's playing through a really nice hi-fi system and using Dolby noise reduction and all that shit, right? Like if you're playing that on a piece of shit Walkman, you're obviously still going to be able to hear it, right? But with good equipment comes a lot of things. But it's just really interesting to me that that's one of those processes that was so horribly flawed from a quality perspective for years, and then eventually someone thought of a better way to do it.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm not sure if there's other industries that have that problem. I don't know. I'm having a hard time thinking of other industries that have like a real problem like that that's just solved. I'm not sure.
All right, so my article is one on, well, it's on a couple different things. So let me just preface this by saying that I don't really want this to get into a debate on whether or not you should or shouldn't buy a house. I think that's obviously up to your personal situation, the market you live in.
That's a fun
et cetera,
debate.
et cetera.
We've probably done that debate in a past episode, though, I'm sure.
Well, we've done it before in whether or not, I think the term was whether or not everyone deserves to own property.
Yes.
That's way back in the archive, so you'll have to go looking for that one.
That's like episode 3 or 4. In fact, if I go back that far in our archives, I find a lot of stuff I disagree with. It's been a long time.
We should have a show where we just go back and pick apart our old
God,
arguments.
find the horrible, old, egregious arguments we made. Oof, that's tough.
So anyway, what I want to talk about is recently I've been noticing that through a bunch of different outlets, so like news sites like CBC, BBC, just other financial newspapers, stuff. It doesn't really matter. There's a whole bunch of sources that are coming out with these articles that are really pushing the idea of home ownership, but pushing it specifically to millennials.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure why this trend has kind of emerged.
Can you give an example? Is there a specific headline pattern or something I would have noticed?
Yeah, I'll get to it in a second.
Okay.
But again, I'm not really sure why the trend is emerging the way it is. I don't know if like we've hit some sort of peak housing market, and now everyone already owns a house, or everyone that can afford it already owns a house, and so now they're trying to beg in.
I have to doubt that, because the only stories I've heard for the past year have been housing prices go up yet again. Apparently, my house is already worth $50,000 more than it was when I bought it. Like it's just stupid.
Your house is not worth that unless you sell it.
No,
so
of course.
Careful about that mindset.
No, you're absolutely correct. It's if you were to sell it today, and it buys you fuck all, because you have to go buy a comparable house, right? So you're not actually making money if you're going into the same type of house.
You're almost always
true.
buying a bigger house.
Almost always.
Yeah, so I'm not sure why they're targeting millennials specifically. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Right. So there was an article a couple months back from the CBC talking about a guy by the name of Sean Cooper, and the article is all about how he paid off his mortgage in 3 years.
What?
Which is insane.
Fuck off.
Yeah, I remember this.
And
Now, hang on. How much down did he go? Like, there's no way he only went 20% down and paid off in 3 years. That's just stupid.
I actually have it up here. Let me see.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to make you dig for research or anything.
So he bought a house in Toronto for $425,000. It does not say how much he. Oh, $255,000 mortgage.
Oh, so he put $200,000 down. Okay, well, fuck that guy.
Yeah, so.
That's no, but this is seriously when Steph and I were in the housing market, right? When we were looking to buy a home, we had a number of people, older people in my life who, in their 40s or 50s, who were established people who were, oh, honey, you gotta wait. You just don't buy a house now. You need to wait, and you need to put down 20% on your house. You will get totally screwed if you don't put down 20%. They're full of shit, every one of them. Nobody our age can afford to put down 20% unless you want to wait 6,000 years in order to put down or in order to buy your house. And it's not actually all that expensive to not put down the 20%. Stupid.
It only gets expensive when you're carrying really high debt ratio.
Yeah, of course.
Your interest rates go up.
Sure, if you're being irresponsible, certainly. I'm not advocating you be irresponsible or anything. I'm just saying that, if you're going to be making an example out of a guy who put down half of his mortgage in a down payment, he's not necessarily the best example of someone who paid their mortgage off quickly, because it's not a practical example. The vast majority of people can't afford that. That's the point I'm making.
And so the article goes into how he also paid it down. And so, and this isn't just specific to this article. This is just,
right.
An example that is in almost every single one of these articles. So, he's working multiple jobs. He works literally every single day of the week, evenings included, evenings, weekends. So he works a full-time job, and then he goes to a part-time job where he makes minimum wage in the evenings, and then he works at like McDonald's or whatever on the weekend. As a result, he essentially does nothing but work. He doesn't take any vacations, doesn't eat out, penny pinches everything, like has no life whatsoever. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, he pays off his mortgage in 3 years, and you could be just like him and own your own house.
Why?
Why aren't you get off your ass and do it?
Kind of thing, that right? Sounds like millennial shaming is what it sounds like to me. That's
so and it is kind of like that. And so anyway, there's another article here. So the BBC recently did another one, and in this article, it's actually a number of these 20-something-year-olds who've all recently paid off their mortgage as well. And it's the exact same story. Look at these millennials. These are hardworking millennials. You could be like this millennial. They just keep repeating.
This seems to me like an extension of the common trope of millennial-esque reporting, where they're like, these millennials are lazy and self-centered and narcissistic, and they don't work well, and blah, 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 blah. And now they're like trying to take that and extend it by going, look at these good millennials who are obviously being good, positive members of society and aren't pieces of shit like the rest of you.
So if you haven't caught on to the trend yet, which it sounds like you have, it can basically be summed up as...
Just millennial shaming? Is that the trend?
Hey, dear millennial listener, you too can own your own home and be mortgage-free if you just give up all of your things, your life, eat craft dinner for all of your meals, never take a vacation unless it's to the park down the road. And you have to walk there because obviously you shouldn't be spending money on cars or anything else fancy like that. Like it's so transparent.
Well, it's just entirely impractical. Like I firmly believe, and look, let me preface this by saying that this is easy to say when you are privileged enough to be able to say it. You must recognize your privilege in this case. I make decent money, okay? And so therefore I firmly believe that I work to live. I do not live to work. I want to work hard and I want to do my job, but I do want to come home and I want to have hobbies and I want to have family time and I want to have free time. I want to do things that I enjoy above and beyond working. I enjoy my job, but I also enjoy the rest of my life, and I do not want to make my job my life or make it the thing that defines who I am.
Right, of course. So actually, so based on what you said, and you're not the only one who thinks that way, I came across a different article on Vice this time. Mm-hmm. And this one was specifically responding to the BBC story. Mm-hmm. Now, it's funny, it's a little bit vulgar, but it's
Vice for you.
It's Vice. So the person who wrote this post or whatever is basically taking issue with the fact that the BBC story can be summed up as don't have a life and save every penny you have. I'm not going to read this whole thing that this person wrote, but I'll read some of the headlines and just a little bit of the content to give you some context. So, for example, the first headline here is, literally get married to the first person who ever lets you touch their genitals. And the reasoning is you can't afford to own a house by yourself, so you have to have a partner. Yep. And if it's not the first person who was that close to you, then you're already behind because it's too late.
That's right. I mean, so a minute ago, I went on a tirade about how nobody can afford to put 20% down on a home, right? But I formed that opinion, a few years ago when, Steph and I couldn't afford to put 20% down on home. If we were trying to buy our first house now, maybe we would be able to, right? So it is a matter of degrees and it's a matter of time as well. But I guess what it comes down to for me is it depends on what you want to focus your life on. Like, to what end do you want to work 3 jobs, 7 days a week for 3 or 4 years to pay down your mortgage? But interest rates are so low that it just, practically speaking, there's little value in that unless you honestly believe the interest rates are going to take off, catastrophically, and you're going to be left behind in some way.
Well, to me, this has nothing to do with owning a house or not. It's a question of whether or not you want to work that much,
right,
or not. Right. I mean, you can find a cheap place to rent,
sure,
and have all your utilities paid for and still work like crazy and live and take crazy vacations or whatever. Like, it all depends on what you want to do. But anyway, the next headline here. If you drink that, sorry, let me start over here. If you drink coffee again, I will slap it out of your hand. So fucking help me God. And it goes on to say, is that a latte in your hand? £1.99, is it? Do you know how many £1.99s a week that is? That's 5, Darren. And that's 10 pounds that could go in the house fund. From now on, it's 2 teaspoons of instant, 4 of sugar, and milk you pinched from the work fridge. If you boil more water in the kettle than you need, I'll make you drink it from the fucking spout.
So,
and that goes for lunch too, you little shit. Like, it's just full of these things. So
it's a good point, right? But once again, I mean, looking at my own lifestyle, do I spend money on stupid shit? Of course I do. That's why I go to work, is so that I can spend my money on things that make me happy. And some of the things that make me happy are not rational if you're penny pinching, right? Like, it depends on what you want to optimize your life around. If you want to optimize your life around the amount of money that you have in a savings account, fine, go be an extreme hoarder. If you want to optimize your life around the speed at which you can pay off your mortgage, okay, if that brings you some kind of pleasure, that's fine. Personally, I want to optimize my life around things that I enjoy doing that are extracurriculars that make me happy,
Yeah, so, I mean, I just thought it was funny that this person finally, I guess, caught on to this trend that's been happening and decided to respond to it. So I don't know why it's happening.
I think there's something more insidious to it, though, Ty. I mean, it's easy.
You think it's the housing cabal is finally
well, no,
into the
I don't know
media?
about that. I sort of mean,
I think they've always been in the media.
Sure. I think it's a continuation of the millennial bashing trend, which is just old people. It's just old people being like, you young people, get off my lawn. Like, it's just bullshit.
Oh my God, my mom is the biggest millennial basher I've ever heard in my life. Every single family function, it's just millennial bashing. And then she goes, but it's not you guys.
Oh, I'm sure. But
I'm like, okay, thanks.
As soon as you preface an argument with, like, as soon as you use the word millennial in an argument, you've lost the argument. It's over. It's like comparing someone to Hitler. Like, stop using the fucking word, because you're painting a group of people who span 20 years of birth with the same broad brush. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Well, can we stop for a minute and I mean, the common thing is, like, millennials are so lazy, they want everything given to them. But speaking of housing specifically, it's like every generation, their parents help them pay for the house. And it's only like our generation. I mean, I don't say that. Maybe that's not the right thing to say. I was going to say it's only our generation that tends to be bucking that trend by either not being able to afford a house, period, even with help.
But if we want to talk specifically, though, about
but
why people can't afford a house, we absolutely can, right? Like, look at house prices, right? I heard a guy on an interview about Canadian politics a little while ago. I won't go into any more detail because I don't remember the specifics, but this guy his background was in real estate investment. I think he was on Canada Land. You might remember this interview, Ty, because I know you listen to that show as well. But he basically put it dead simple. He says, you know why house prices continue to rise? Because interest rates are low. It's that simple. When interest rates are low,
of course,
people can buy really more extravagant homes than they would otherwise because they can get cheap credit. You raise interest rates, house prices will stop going up. Interest rates have been low for our entire adult lives and then some. So no wonder house prices are out of control right now. Combine that with the fact that there are a good number of people, ourselves not included, because we are lucky enough to work in Tyler and I in the computer industry and Derek in the trades. We make decent money for our age group and bracket, but there are people who, got your liberal arts degree from university and are qualified to do effectively fuck all, and so they're working part-time jobs, and they're working 2 or 3 part-time jobs, stringing it together. And when Steph and I were trying to qualify for our mortgage, she was working a part-time retail job, and we actually didn't include her income in our calculations because it reduced the amount that we could qualify for our mortgage, because it was considered to be sort of hazardous is the wrong word, but not serious work in a sense. Like, if you're a certain type of person in a certain type of work, it's impossible to qualify for a mortgage no matter how much money you have. And so this whole millennial bashing, specifically around house prices, gets me really angry because it's like a collusion of factors that have been entirely out of control of the hands of the people who are being bashed. It wasn't us who set the low interest rates that made the house prices go up, and it's not us who, fucked the job market so that a good number of our peers can't get steady employment, and it's not us who fucked over the rights of part-time workers so that people have to string together 3 jobs just to make ends meet. None of it was the people who are impacted, and yet all of it is victim blaming those people. It's bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, it's even if you look at the historical interest rates, I think it was. I can't remember the exact numbers now, but I think it was like even as recently as the 2000s when interest rates were like 8-9%, which is significantly higher than they are today.
Sure.
In the 80s, they were up in like the 18%.
Yeah, my parents claim that they bought their first house. I'm going to get the numbers wrong here, but they'll be in the ballpark for $35,000 at 18%. So now,
that's how much my parents
paid. An 18% mortgage is nothing to sneeze at, man. That's serious business. But 18% on $35,000. Hey, I bought a house just about 2 years ago for $350,000. So there's a significant difference over those 30 years.
Yep.
But anyway, I don't know. There's part of me thinks that it's just sort of like this dark conspiracy of people who know that they've fucked people over, and so to make themselves feel better, they just sort of blame the people they fucked over for being lazy and shitty, because they recognize that if they were honest with themselves, they'd realize how much they fucked those people over. I think that's about it for us tonight, isn't it?
Yep.
All right, well, listen, thanks for listening. I hope you got something out of our ranting and raving. Please remember to check out the show notes there. We got links to all the articles, videos, websites that we mentioned. So interesting stuff down there.
Hey, we're on, not only are we on iTunes these days, but we're also now on Google Play.
Oh, yeah.
And what else? We're on YouTube.
We're on YouTube?
And
really?
In HD.
Have you been taking videos of us? You creep.
Yes, when you haven't been paying
What
attention.
is it, just an HD of our logo?
Well, you'll have to check it out.
Okay, I'll subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right.
It's a legitimate
Do people
video.
actually listen to
like
podcasts on YouTube? Is that a thing people do?
Apparently, as asinine as it is, yes, people do.
They're aware that you can stream them from iTunes, right?
And they're aware that YouTube Music, YouTube Music these days doesn't sound like crap.
No,
but
it sounds
pretty much up
fine.
until
It just seems silly to me to stream a video when you could stream the same audio just as easy. But whatever. Yep. Okay, fine.
Yep,
we're on
people do
YouTube.
what they
Hey,
do.
look, don't let me shit all over your fun. If you want to subscribe to us on YouTube, you absolutely should.
Twitter, Facebook, Reddit.
Yep, all the places. Contact us at thesauce.com if you want to get in touch with us. That's it. Bye.